Hi everyone, today is the 17th of July and it's of importance to Russians, this date is, because as the Embassy of Russia tweeted out this morning, on the 17th of July 1942, the largest battle in history, the Battle of Stalingrad, commenced with Nazi offensive with almost 500,000 troops at first, nearly 1,000,000 by November. The offensive was repelled and the battle resulted in a decisive Soviet victory. Many historians believe that this was the turning point of World War II, and many historians also believe that if the Russians had lost Stalingrad, they had lost that battle, Germany may well have won the war. Just think about that. 500,000 Russians, I believe, lost their lives in that battle. Just thought I'd start this video by reminding everybody that in the past, Russia, for the most part, has actually been on the right side of history. Thought I'd remind everybody of that. Because yesterday, of course, was the summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Now, he was on a hiding to nothing, Trump was, with this. Short of body slamming Trump to the ground and punching him in the face in full view of all the photographers, a la what he did with Vince McMahon, he was never going to get any praise. Never. This was in the Hill just before the summit went on. GOP lawmaker calls on Trump to declare Russia the enemy of America ahead of Putin's summit. That's Ben Sass. A better thing, Mr. President, would be to declare Russia is the enemy of America and our allies, and we will expose and respond to their continued cyber attacks against our nation. It's not like America or any other country does this. America have interfered in 81 elections since the CIA was formed in 1948, I think it was. This is Amy Klobuchar. So again, this is before the summit happened, just to show you that there was no way he was going to get any praise from this, unless, as I say, he pinned Putin to the ground. This says it all. When President Vladimir Putin sits down with President Trump for a meeting he has long wanted, he will already have accomplished virtually everything he could reasonably hope for. Just sitting down with Trump, Putin comes out ahead. You may remember that, because if you actually replaced President Vladimir Putin in that with President Kim Jong-un, this is exactly what they said with the North Korea summit. They don't want peace. They need an enemy. I'll get to that at the end. So the summit happened, and I'm sure you've seen the press conference right now. And I'm not going to go into what was said. I'm sure you're aware of what was said by now. And I'll maybe do a video and just cover exactly, how they answered the questions and what was in their statements. But here's John Brennan after the summit finished. He said Donald Trump's press conference performance in Helsinki rises to and exceeds the threshold of high crimes and misdemeanors. It was nothing short of treasonous. Not only were Trump's comments imbecilic, he is wholly in the pocket of Putin. Republican patriots, where are you? This is Trump derangement syndrome, or TDS as I am going to call it from now on. They are losing their minds over Donald Trump. It's not just the left, it's the right as well. And it's becoming hilarious, to be quite honest. This is what the GOP lawmaker said of John Brennan's statement. He said he accused this ex-CIA chief of being a communist after he called Trump-Putin meeting treasonous. Now, I just find it hilarious when people bring up communist as an insult. Now that's why I added this. This was Romney. He teared into Trump, calls behaviour at Putin's summit disgraceful and detrimental to our democratic principles. That's what Romney said. I'm going to cover quite a few of these. Here's the nutcase that is Garry Kasparov. He said, I'm ready to call this the darkest hour in the history of American presidency. Let me know if you can think of any competition. Well, immediately what came to mind is Nagasaki and Hiroshima. I'm pretty sure that would be the darkest day in American history. There are many, many other instances as well. But, Garry Kasparov, he's a nutcase. What do you expect? Rachel Maddow did a segment on this. I haven't watched it. I got through about 3 minutes and I had to turn it off, to be quite honest, because it was propaganda of the worst kind. she had a something in the background that said worst case scenario. You know exactly what she's talking about when she's worst case scenario. This is Rachel Maddow 101. She never actually comes out and outright accuses anything. She just implies it, so the audience will infer what she's saying. It's very, very clever what she does, but it's also bloody dangerous. And oh, I despise that woman so much. I really do. Here's David Corn, who is something to do with Mother Jones, which is, if Mother Jones saw what that publication had actually turned into, rolling in the grave right now. He said if Trump did not directly collude with the Russian hack on the Democrats, he has definitely colluded in the cover-up of the attack. So now it's not he colluded with Russia to win the presidency. Now he colluded to cover it up. You couldn't make this up. You really couldn't. If this was in a book, you'd think this is just pathetic. It's just too far-fetched. Here's Kurt Eichenwald. Bottom line, you either support the patriots in our intelligence community and law enforcement who work endlessly for our national security and all of the intelligence agencies and our allies, or you support Putin. There's no in between. You're either a patriot or a traitor or an idiot. That's the three things. Patriot, traitor, idiot. There's nothing else. Choose. I think you're an idiot, to be quite honest, Kurt. I think you're in the last category there. Rania Kalik actually noticed this. I was going to try and dig this out, but I thought I can't sit through any time of CNN. I tried to sit through 5 minutes of CNN yesterday after the summit, and I was honestly screaming at my computer monitor like a madman. And had to switch it off, so I'm not going to try and find it. But she said, crazy CNN panel just questioned how John Bolton can possibly continue to work for Trump, given Trump doesn't say Russia committed an act of war on the US. Jesus, CNN is complaining that world-class neocon thug Bolton isn't enough of a warmonger. Just let that sink in. Just let that sink in. CNN are actually saying that Bolton should be more hawkish. Wow, here's Adam Schiff. President Trump just attacked our intelligence agencies and law enforcement for doing their jobs while standing next to a dictator who intervened in our election to help elect Trump. Putin will take this as a green light to interfere in 2018, and it is cowardly and shameful. You can see where the rhetoric is here. There are thousands and thousands of these. Top Senate Democrat urges sanctions hearings after Trump Putin summit. Wow, you want to put sanctions on Russia because of the summit? Who wants that? Oh wait, it's Chuck Schumer. Schumer, speaking at a news conference, also urged Republican congressional leaders to call the US national security team that accompanied Trump to Helsinki to immediately testify before Congress. He did another interview yesterday, and he said this. Take a listen to this.
Time for the Republican Party to walk the walk, given the direness of this situation. The president is doing grave harm to the standing of these United States while kowtowing to the number one enemy we probably have on the globe, Vladimir Putin. He'll continue to do so if he isn't checked, and the best people to check him are not Democrats, but his fellow Republicans.
It's just... they've lost their minds. Trump derangement syndrome has made half of America lose their minds. This in Politico opinion. Quote, this is our Pearl Harbor, our 9/11. Wow. Wow. Hundreds of people died in Pearl Harbor, wasn't it? It was hundreds, or was it thousands? 3,000 died on 9/11. And they're likening this summit to those terrible dark days. In the past, we have risen to the defense of our values, our ideologies, and our institutions. It's time for another fight. What fight? What are you going to retaliate? It says there, make no mistake, hacking the 2016 election was an act of war. It's time we responded accordingly to an act of war. What, do you want to bomb Russia, do you? Oh, it carries on. This is Michael Moore, and this is just hilarious. It really is. Remember, this is the guy who did a massively long documentary on how the intelligence services lied about weapons of mass destruction and got us into a war with Iraq. Remember that. This is Michael Moore who did that massive long documentary on how the intelligence services lied to get the war in Iraq. And he says, Trump is asked, how are you going to believe, the Russians or your own officers? And he refused to choose. Do you support your troops or Putin? And he wouldn't choose. So my first thought goes out to those who serve this country. I am so sorry, the commander-in-chief is a traitor. Really? What evidence have you seen, Michael Moore, that makes you think that what they're saying now is true and not the same as what they were saying with Iraq? They have lost their minds. I've got to add this because I was quite proud of this. Meghan McCain, John McCain's daughter, said, I don't have anything quippy to tweet. I'm horrified and I've never been more proud of the fact that Putin hates my father. Well, I had to reply to that. I said, I'm proud of everyone who hates your father. And I truly mean that. Anybody who hates John McCain is a friend of mine. Now, all of this rhetoric, and they're all saying that it's terrible. They have never treated Putin is the enemy. Putin is the enemy. He's always been the enemy. He's never been our friend, they say. They have said it over and over and over again in the mainstream media. Doug Stafford, who I believe is a strategist for Rand Paul. Rand Paul is one of the few people who's actually come out and talked sense, few politicians who's come out and talked sense about all this. But Doug Stafford just nails it. This is a brilliant thread. It really is. He said the press and the left and the war hawks all seem fired up that real Donald Trump was too nice to Putin today. You mean nice, like bringing him to your home and having your whole family greet him with flowers like he's Miss Moscow? This is when he met George Bush. And then he said, do you mean nice like having lovely nicknames like Pooty Poot for him and seeing into his soul, which happened again under George Bush? Or maybe having laughing, joking pressers while adorable kids ask questions again? George Bush, remember, Putin actually went and stopped at Camp David with the Bushes. This wasn't that long ago. And this was even more recent, or maybe having him whisper sweet nothings in his ear. This was obviously at the G20 summit, and Putin said something to Obama, and he laughed hysterically, and I assume right-wingers lost their shit. Obviously not to this extent that happened yesterday, but his perhaps a big goofy reset button presentation to his foreign minister, and there she is, Hillary Clinton, with that big reset button. That wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago that Russia were friends, and now all of a sudden they're enemies. Well, why is that? I'll get to that in a minute, but I just want to point out one thing. Now, there is a huge disconnect. I understand this. I understand there's a huge disconnect, and there has been in the past, between what Trump has said, his words, and his actions. But this summit in Helsinki, it exceeded my expectations by a mile. I am no big fan of Trump. My regular viewers know that. But I am objective enough to be able to say, when he does something right, to be able to say, I totally support him in what he's doing. I'm not a partisan hack like you will find on MSNBC or CNN or any other bloody mainstream channel. I can see when he's doing some good. And he has done some good. But the one thing that he said yesterday, I immediately wrote it down and tweeted it out because it was, in my opinion, the best thing that Trump has ever said by a mile. He said this. He said, I would rather take a political risk in pursuit of peace than to risk peace in pursuit of politics. That's going to be a meme in years to come, and people are going to be sharing that all over social media and saying, wow, isn't that a powerful statement? It's the best thing he's ever said. And you have to ask yourself, with all the attacks on him at the moment for essentially wanting peace, it's essentially what it is. For all the attacks on him at the moment, you have to wonder, he gets attacked across the board when he tries for peace. And then when he bombs a country, Brian Williams comes out and says this.
We see these beautiful pictures at night from the decks of these two U.S. Navy vessels in the eastern Mediterranean. I am tempted to quote the great Leonard Cohen, "I'm guided by the beauty of our weapons." And they are beautiful pictures of fearsome armaments making what is for them a brief flight over to this airfield. What did they hit? What are you convinced?
And that's indicative, really, what he said there, of how the mainstream media reacted to him bombing that airfield in Syria last year. So it makes you wonder if he gets attacked when he's after peace and he gets praised when he does something warlike. Why is that? Well, it's because, obviously, the military-industrial complex, who obviously run advertising on MSNBC and cable channels and buy the politicians with donations, they will stand to lose an absolute ton of money. And what's worse than that is they are doing this because of an alleged cyber attack in 2016. Now, Rosenstein has said no Americans were involved, no Americans did anything wrong, no Americans had any knowledge that they were in contact with Russians, and there was no collusion. Yet, everybody immediately has jumped on it as if what is in the indictment is true. Now, just look at who you are taking at face value. Look at this guy. Look at Strzok. Just look at... Does that look like the face of somebody that you want to trust without seeing evidence? Really? Have you lost your mind so much that you want to take his word? Trump derangement syndrome, it's half of America right now is infected with it, and probably half the world. The FBI, the CIA, they have lied constantly to the American public and the world for decades. All we're asking, people like me, all we're asking is for proof. Because here's the thing as well. Even if we do get the proof that this happened, so what? So what? What happened because of it? Was the result changed at all? No, Rosenstein said that as well when he released the indictment. He said it didn't sway the outcome at all. So what was the crime that they did? Well, if they did this crime, there's a big question. It's a big if. If they really did it, they did the American public a good deed. They showed them just how corrupt and how much of a bunch of liars the DNC and their political heroes were. They showed them how they were rigging their own primary. They were rigging their own election. If you want to look at a rigged election in 2016, right there, that's where it is. But all of that has been overshadowed because of this Russia hysteria and this Trump derangement syndrome. Like I say, I know there's a big disconnect between Trump's words and his actions. But this is one instance where I am so hoping that what he says, he really means, and he really does want to ease tensions with Russia and be friends. I want that as well. I want peace in the world. Don't you? If you enjoyed this video, please click the bell down there and subscribe so you get a notification of next time I drop a video. Also, I can't do this without your help, so if you can afford it and you enjoy my videos, please support the channel by subscribing to my Patreon. Link is down there. You can do it for as little as $1 a month, and it really does help. If you can't afford it, that's fine. Please share my work and talk to other people about the issues that I bring up. Thanks very much for your support. Until next time, peace and take care.